So I've been wanting to do this review of the Raven MPV 7100 for quite a while. I wanted to give it some time to really test it and not jump to conclusions or be irrational. So it's been 2 years since I've had it, and I'm going to compare it to my other lawnmower, which is a Toro Zero Turn SS 5000, which is also very good. So I just want to go over some of the features and some of the things that I like, some of the things I don't like. So I think first off, it's real easy to say, it looks pretty cool. It has really nice design, styling. It looks aggressive. It has the higher, excuse the jostly camera, there we go. It has a higher raised suspension, and it has a real aggressive look. So, okay, so on the surface, that's cool. Now some of the things that it does, which I guess I wish I would have researched more when I bought it, but it's not a deal breaker. So this is a hybrid, so it has electric options as well as a gasoline engine on it. You're not able to cut the grass just in electric mode. It uses too much power for that to be reasonable for the battery size that's on this. So you can only cut grass while you have the engine running. And also another thing to keep in mind, you can only cut grass it has a high mode or a high speed and a low speed. Low speed is about 5 to 6 miles an hour. High speed is about 17 miles an hour. You can only cut grass when you selected the low speed. Now obviously everyone, I want to cut grass as fast as I can. 17 miles an hour is a little too fast to be cutting grass. You'll probably just push the grass. You'll blow right past the grass before you can actually cut it. But that being said, I've actually bypassed mine so I can cut in high or low. Now I have a certain area that's pretty flat, and I don't get a lot of grass that grows there. So it's actually better well, for me it works for that scenario. For the rest of the yard, slow is better. It cuts pretty good on slow mode. And actually I use it in our backyard because the ground is a little it doesn't get as much sun exposure, so the ground's a little softer. Now if I were to use the zero turn, that is a little more aggressive when turning, and I find that it leaves skid marks a lot when I'm turning. So unless you're very ginger and very careful when you get to the end of a pass, you might tear up the turf. Whereas this, you just turn the wheel and go and continue on your other pass. Okay, so let me show you some of the things about it. So obviously this is the cutting deck. It's an electric. It has electric motors that operate the blades. You can see in there, rather than having belts and pulleys. So taking it off is actually a lot easier than most belt-driven cutting decks. There's a pin right here. There's one on the other side. There's also one on the very front right there. So 3 pins, and then it drops to the ground, and then you can move it around on the wheels. It's heavy, but it's manageable. And also down here, this is probably one of my gripes of this unit. This right here selects your high speed or your low speed. So what you do is you pull it down and pull it towards you for low speed, and push it away from you for high speed. So that works just fine, but if you're in a situation where you want to, kind of switch gears on the fly, you've got towing something up a hill that you need, low end torque for, you're in low speed. And now you get to an open flat area where you just want to make up some ground, you have to stop and get down there and pull the lever. It would be really convenient if there was some kind of either mechanical or electric operated high-low gear selector up here. So that's probably a gripe. I wish there was something different design-wise about it, but not a deal breaker. So let's see, obviously this is your key. So one of the things I really like about it in terms of usefulness around the house, well, not around the house, around the property, I guess, is that you can operate it just in electric mode and drive it around. If you're hauling wood, if you're like I haul wood. I take out the garbage with it. I do lots of stuff with my trailer with it, and it works really well. I'll say the only thing that it doesn't do that great with is when it gets real muddy and slippery out there. This is only rear-wheel drive. There's no selection for a four-wheel drive. Obviously, it's a lawnmower, so you know it's more. I'm probably overusing what it's designed for. So I've gotten it stuck a couple of times, and I haven't been able to get out. So that's why I opted to put on a winch on the front, which alleviates that concern. If I ever get stuck, I can just winch out. Now this wasn't really like a bolt-on scenario. I mean, I had to take this bumper off and weld on some extensions to accommodate for the room, and then custom mount the winch. I mean, it's a cheap winch, but it works great, and I've pulled myself out a couple times with it. I've actually pulled out some fallen trees in the middle of the woods. It doesn't have great access, so I run the winch out there and pull the tree where I can work on it better. So I installed that along with the winch controller right here, and yeah, it works great. I wish that it had some kind of four-wheel drive capability, like a Polaris Ranger or something like that. Another thing to note, it has a safety feature where if you put it in reverse, the cutting deck goes off. I'm pretty sure that's common with most lawnmowers. Aside from my zero turn, I can go around in circles and cut everything, and it's not going to turn the blades off at all. So that is super convenient about that. You can just get the grass cut, you don't have to worry about it. Now this does have a reverse motor override. So if you're to hold this, then put it in reverse, the blades will stay on. It's a little inconvenient, but it's a safety feature. I get it. Make sure you don't back over the dog or something. And then this obviously turns the blades on if you pull it up. Turns the blades off when you push it down. It also has cruise control, which is very nice. If you have long lengths of grass that you're cutting, you want to maintain a certain speed. Very convenient for that. This one has, like most do, a seat sensor where if you get up, it turns the cutting deck off. Again, I know it's a safety feature, but when you have to jump off and pick up the kids' toys or pick up a branch or something, I don't want to have to, let me restart everything and go through the sequence. So my seat sensor right here, it would bolt here. It's a pressure sensor. I actually just flipped it upside down and bolted it right down, so it's always going to read that I'm sitting there. Yep, I know it's not safe, but I'm the only one who operates it, and it's just for quick convenience of grabbing things around you, picking them up or whatnot. So another thing with this little storage trunk area, it looks pretty small, but I put a lot of stuff in there. Chainsaw. I usually keep the chainsaw, a little hatchet, and some chainsaw oil in there. Just throwing them out, doing some wood stuff. And yeah, it's very convenient. It has the little tailgate there that comes down. It actually folds completely down. It's just that I have something else that I added was this mount. This is a rear mount for a hopper. There's my hopper there. So I can put on some fertilizer or weed killer or whatever I want. And so I have a rear hopper to spread in the yard. Now, so that's something I've added, and also it actually gets in the way of, you could normally flip this all the way back and you have really good access to work on the engine. It flips all the way back, it's wide open. So if I need to get to it, I have to take my rear hitch off, but I haven't had the need to, so it's not really been an issue. Overall performance of cutting, I'll say that it cuts pretty well. It's a jack-of-all-trades lawnmower where it does a bunch of little things well, but nothing it doesn't do any one thing the best. One thing to note that while cutting the grass, these front tires are so wide. If you compare them to the tires on this, the Zero Turn, I mean, it's about double the width. And also the weight of this, it's more evenly distributed, so there's a lot more weight on the front tires than there is on the Zero Turn. So what happens when you're cutting the grass is the front wheel mats the grass down, and then as your cutting deck goes over it, it doesn't even cut it because the grass is still down. Now, I'm not saying that I have, stripes through the yard of, the tire width where there's no grass cut. It cuts most of it, but when you look past like the next day where the grass kind of rebounds, you can see a little stragglers poking up that it didn't get. Now with the Zero Turn, that's not even an issue just because of the weight distribution. Most of it's on the back and the skinnier front tires. So that's something to definitely keep in mind, something I didn't really notice until after a handful of times of using it. Also, the cutting deck on this is about 46 inches, I believe, and the cutting deck on my Zero Turn is 52. So that makes a really big difference in getting the lawn cut faster as well. I'll say the Zero Turn does a more consistent cut, and it does it faster, and it's more agile than the Raven. Now, of course, the Zero Turn, that's what it does. It's a lawnmower. That's it. There's no winch on it. There's no, I can't drive it around electrically. I could put a trailer on it. There is a hitch on the back of it, which I've used occasionally, but it's more impractical than this would be. So another thing with mine, I don't know if you noticed, there's big blue batteries down there. So it's a hybrid electric. It came standard with 4 12-volt, 20 amp hour batteries. They were located right down there behind the rear wheels. And they worked fine tooling around. But I noticed after maybe a year, the battery range would decrease and I'd have to charge it more frequently. And then I took all the batteries out and I individually load tested them. And one of them had a bad cell. I'm like, well, I don't want to upgrade, or I don't want to replace the battery. I don't want to put money into the standard size battery. I want to take the opportunity to upgrade it. So I replaced it with 4 12-volt, 35 amp hour batteries. Now, of course, the battery footprint is a lot bigger than it was, and I had to custom make this whole battery tray. The tray and everything is welded, but it bolts in. So if I wanted to remove it, I can. And I also had to make some extensions to move the bumper back on the hitch, and then I welded up the hopper bracket too. I know it's a lot of work, but it was well worth it. The power and longevity of the power is very noticeable. It works a lot better than the OEM batteries. Let me see here. Okay, so let's go over the generator feature. So this obviously is if you want to break down the design, it's mostly a generator that powers an electric lawnmower. is mostly what it is. So it has a lot of features on this panel. So there's 2 double 120 volt outlets, 20 amp service on each. Each one of them has its own switch. These are weather sealed boots. And here's this switch over here is to turn the generate mode on. This is your hour meter for how long it's been running. This is a 12-volt outlet, like you'd have in your car. This can actually operate with the included 12-volt battery charger. I actually have mine right over here. Actually, I don't have it. So if you wanted to charge your 12-volt battery in between, now whenever you're running the engine, it charges the 12-volt batteries and it also charges the 48-volt batteries. Now these are they're 4 12-volt batteries, wired in series, so it's 48 volts that operate the cutting deck and the drive system. Whenever the engine's running, it is charging both batteries. But if you go prolonged times in between running the engine, you might be better off to keep it plugged in occasionally, just to make sure that you have sufficient battery power. So that's where there's that connector, or that included adapter to charge the 12-volt battery. And also down here, this one is a 48-volt charge port. Now this was what I was interested in, was keeping my 48-volt batteries charged without having to run the engine. I like to go electric whenever I can, but the only, out of the box, the only way to charge those batteries is to run the engine. And to me, that kind of defeats the purpose of utilizing the electric capabilities of it. So that's not included. It's an optional an item that you'd have to purchase. It's in the back of the user manual under the parts section, I believe. And so I had to reach out to them to order it. And I want to say it was $40 or $50. So it works great, but it's unfortunate that it's not included. And right here you have 120 volt, 30 amp twist lock, again with its own switch. And this is a master switch to turns the whole panel on and off. Now it's very functional. There's a lot of outlets there. I've used them. They work just fine. It kind of looks like a submarine panel. There's all kinds of stuff all over it. I think design-wise it could be simplified a lot. Because I've had my wife jumped on here a couple times, and she's like, this thing isn't working, it's a piece of junk. Like, just settle down, I'll look at it. All that happened was the generate mode accidentally got turned on. Now when you turn generate mode on, it disables the drive system altogether. So that was really the only issue. But you could actually get it with your foot, of course. So I understand the issue. But design-wise, if you're designing a lawnmower with a generator on it, where else would you put all the panels, I guess? You could figure out something in the back, I suppose. But anyway, just something to keep in mind. It's a good idea to go through the user manual just so you have a really good idea of how it operates, and when you put generate mode on, that it disables the drive system. Now, raising and lowering the deck, it's like any other mower. It's a spring assisted lever to raise and lower the deck. What else? Steering column is adjustable. I know on the early models there used to be a quick lever, and I was thinking, man, that'd be pretty convenient. But reading through some forums, I guess that lever would come loose on its own a lot, and then the whole column would move, and they'd have to constantly retighten it. So I understand the upgrade for adding a bolt in there instead. And also another thing, I added a turning wheel. So when you're cutting the grass, you're doing all kinds of turns, and that little boy has been awesome for completing turns and whatnot. The turning radius on this too is excellent. Now I'm not going to say it's anything like the Zero Turn, but that's nearly a 90-degree turn. So realistically, maybe, yeah, it's obviously not that, but that's pretty close. That's a really tight turning radius. I'm sure it's like that on most lawnmowers, but I'm happy with it. I couldn't ask for anything more out of this. Obviously, the Zero Turn can turn around in its own footprint, just the way it's designed. So another thing I think would have been nice, more creature comforts. You have a cup holder here. It's not a very good cup holder though. If you had like a soda can, that would hold it because it's not that tall. But if you had a tall drink in here, it tips right over. So I think something a little more secure, maybe taller, would be better. And also, there's no, when I'm out cutting the grass or doing stuff in the woods, I might be out there for a few hours. If I'm streaming something on my phone, phone's going to die. So I also added this dual USB port, and this one actually has a voltmeter built into it too. So I can monitor the 12-volt battery what the voltage is at, and it also has 2 USBs on it. So if I need to charge my phones, it's real easy to do so. There's a couple other things I added. So like this is actually a speed controller. There we go. Now this goes in line with that hopper I got. I've actually used the hopper as a salt spreader in the winter. I put salt in it, and that's actually what this is for too. This is a switch for a linear, let's go look at it, for a linear actuator that opens the door of the hopper. And with this speed controller, I can control the speed of the motor on the hopper to control the amount of salt going out, or if you wanted to control the amount of anything you're spreading in the yard, really. So those are things I added that it's not really easy. I mean, that's hardwiring and adding relays and fuses and stuff just to fit my needs. Obviously it's not necessary, but so overall, it tows really well. I use this trailer all the time. It does. I use it, if not every day, every other day. For garbage. Our mailbox really isn't like close to our house. I would say it's down the road. I mean, it's like an 1/8 mile away. So sometimes if I don't grab it on the way home from work, I'll grab this and I'll grab one of the kids and we'll go get the mail. And, it's a fun little ride for them. So I'll go over the things I wish that it had, or wish that were different, or things now, looking back, I probably would have been better served to look for something that had some of these features. So like I said, with the kids, I wish I had a side-by-side where I had 2 seats here, because otherwise they're sitting in my lap, and it's kind of hard to, turn and cut the grass or anything with them right there. So I would go for that. I don't like the high-low selector switch. It's a little cumbersome. I wish I had something that was 4-wheel drive, so I wouldn't really need the winch. But those are more, like I said, I think I'm using it for more than what it's designed for. Back up. Than what it's a lawnmower. It's not a UTV. I think, and also, so you're probably, well, why do you have 2? So the only issue I've ever had with this was probably 5 months after I got it. I was cutting the grass, and then all of a sudden it just stopped working, and I noticed a really intense burning smell, electrical burning. Like, here we go. And it's not like it there for me. We live in Chicago, or near Chicago, and the closest dealer is in Michigan. So it's not very convenient for me to just go up to Michigan and here, drop it off. And so unfortunately, because I ordered it and they just, it was delivered via a UPS truck, like a big UPS truck with a lift gate. And so getting it serviced was not, wasn't really an option. I actually, let me see here. I actually reached out to one of the gentlemen in these, like a service technician from not from Raven. It's who Denver Global Products, I think, is who manufactures this. And he was very helpful, very communicative, very helpful, and obviously knowledgeable because he works on these. So he directed me in a lot of the areas where to check and what to do. And so I was able to determine under here, there's actually, we could turn the light on. There we go. There is a circuit board in here. Honestly, I don't know what it does. It's some type of control board. And it was smoke. There's a hole burned right through it. And I'm like, well, that's not good. Like, well, I wonder what could cause that. So I got to behind here, these panels, or this panel right here, there are contactors. When you turn the key on, contactors pull in, and now we have 48 volt power active. When the switch is off, the contactors disengage, and 48 volts is really just at the batteries. It's not going, or sitting at the contactors. It's not going anywhere. But one of those contactor coils shorted out, and that's what caused the board to burn. And so fortunately, I was able to work with him, and they sent me out replacement parts at no charge. It was still under warranty. So I was able to get a couple of contactors, and they sent out a couple boards just in case. And I got it all fixed, and it's been working ever since. But if you think about in the middle of the summer, when you have to cut the grass every week, you know, this was down while I was waiting for parts and tech support. This was down for probably 6 weeks, which is a huge bummer for something I was really excited about. And, you know, like, oh, it does all these things. It's great. You know, hey, it's broken. So that's where this comes in. Like, you know, I need a lawnmower. I need to cut my grass. So that's when I got this. They're about the same price. I think this was $2,300. The Raven was about $2,500. So this, you know, like I said, it cuts grass. That's really all it does. It does a really good job at that. It cuts it faster and more consistently, but it's engine only, and that's all it's really going to be able to do. This is the Raven is so much more versatile. You know, it may not have the highest towing capacity. It doesn't cut the grass the best. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't have four-wheel drive. But it, you know, like I said, it doesn't do anything the best, but it does a lot of things pretty well. And I've had this way overloaded. I've had wood, you know, giant logs up on this cart. You know, we're talking probably 1,000 pounds, you know, way past what I should be doing with it. But I towed it around from where I was to where I needed to go. And in power-wise, I was able to handle it. I think it's more of a hitch restriction weight rating than it is, you know, power for the Raven. But yeah, it works. Like I said, it works great with the modifications that I've done to it. I think hindsight, if I knew I'd be getting the zero turn anyway, I may have opted for a true side-by-side UTV, like a Polaris Ranger EV. I've been looking at those, like, man, it looks nice with a canopy and 2 seats, and it's all electric all the time, and it's 4-wheel drive, and comes with a winch, yada yada yada. Like, it looks pretty cool, and way more rugged and useful in that sense than the Raven. But again, the Raven's a lawnmower. So overall, I do like it, and it's especially functional with the things that I've added to it. But yeah, there's a few gripes about cut quality, the high-low selector, and I forgot what else I said. I mean, it's a couple little gripes, nothing to, you know, nothing that would detract the usability of it. But if you have any questions, just let me know, and I'll be happy to try to answer them, and hopefully gear you towards buying one or not. Either way. Thanks for watching.